Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to Clear Sky Collective. This is the third one. We started in January. This will be the third Clear Sky Collective. Um, Before we get started, I'd love to share a couple housekeeping things. Um, Number one is if you can keep distractions to a minimum, that's great. It'll help you to be able to listen and focus. Um, so if you have a cell phone, feel free to turn it off. Don't throw it out the window because you probably need it later. Um, the other thing is, I'm going to invite you to a way of listening to this experience. So I'm going to invite you to a way of listening. How many people here have been on more than 5 flights in their life on an airplane? More than 5 flights. So
Me,
whenever you get on an airplane, there's the lady comes up, the flight attendant, and she's sharing about all of the safety information. How many people stop listening to that after like the third or fourth time you're on an airplane and you just put your earbuds in and you just go to do
yep,
whatever you
yep, yep,
want to
yep,
do?
yep, yep.
Right? It's like the flight attendant comes on. It's like, all right, yeah, I've heard this before. Whatever. So now I want you to imagine that's one way of listening. You can have flight attendant listening. Yeah, I've heard this all before. Now, another way of listening is pilot listening. If the pilot comes on and you're in the air and the pilot says, all right, everybody, buckle up. We just had engine number one go out, and we're gonna have to have a crash landing. Then how well are you gonna listen to the instructions from the pilot whenever that's happening? Is anybody gonna listen a little more intently? You'd be a little more present to what the instructions are.
You
And
would
also,
try,
this isn't
but everyone would
instruction.
be screaming.
That could be. But I just want to invite you to a way of listening so you can hear the most out of this, because what this experience is, this is a space where you can come to hear something that has the potential to shift your life in a way that can be extreme and really meaningful in your relationships, in your business, and your personal interactions, the way you show up with yourself, the way you show up with others, the way you show up in your business with your kids. You can hear something here that's going to be really, really valuable for you, to help you to be able to be who you want to be in the world. That's what this is about. And it's a catalyst for insight. And today we're going to talk about something really important. And that's what blocks us from our inner resilience and our innate wisdom that we have underneath of our thinking. So I'm gonna tell you a couple stories about my life, um, and some of the miracles that have happened in my life and shifts in my perception that happened over the years that have been really, really valuable for me. Um, and I guess I can start with one of the first things was I used to drink a lot, and I've realized I'm allergic to alcohol. Um, every time I drink, I have this bad reaction. I break out in handcuffs. So I stopped drinking. Finally, I was like, you know what? I don't like that. I don't like that reaction. So I decided to stop drinking. Um, but one of my first realizations was it took me a while, but I used to do a lot of different 12-step meetings. And one of the things that they talked about in 12-step meetings was meditation. How many people here have ever heard of meditation?
Me,
Okay. I was going to say, if you haven't, we're going to introduce you to it today. We're going to do just a little short meditation. But I remember people saying, did you ever try to meditate? And I was like, that's the dumbest thing I ever heard. What am I, a monk? What do I look like, a Buddhist monk? I don't have a bald head. I don't sit around going, om, 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 om. And there were different people over the years that asked me that. And, I resisted that. And I had something called contempt prior to investigation. Have you ever had this? It's like, nah, that ain't gonna work for me. You don't know who I am. I'm not like that. That stuff just doesn't work. And I never tried it for probably about 20 years, at least 20 years. And then I tried it and I was like, oh my goodness, this stuff actually helps me to be way more peaceful. And this isn't, I don't want this to be this isn't like me sharing prescriptions for what works for you, because I don't know what will work for you. I know what's worked for me, and I know the way of thinking that has created a lot of resistance in my life, and I know the way of thinking that has created a lot of resistance to peace, joy, and I know some of the ways of thinking that have led me to that. Not that I think that way all the time, but one of the things I realized was contempt prior to investigation. Maybe you can apply that to a place in your life where maybe you're saying, I'm just not like that. I'm not that kind of person. But maybe you've never actually tried it. Maybe you've never tried that thing that could be beneficial for you. Or maybe you've never looked in that direction, in the direction that could be holding a lot of value for you. So today I want us to explore different ways of looking. If you're open to explore, if you're open to look in a different direction, towards a different, just look in a different direction. You just set your current thinking down for a minute and just look in a different direction as an exploration. We're not trying to get anywhere. We're just going to look around a little bit and explore a little bit. So that's one thing that held me from my inner resistance, and it still can, is contempt prior to investigation. Is saying, I've already made up my mind of who I am and what I'm capable of, so I don't look in that direction because I've already decided, that's not for me. What am I, a monk? And now sometimes I do sit down and go, which is kind of funny because I said I would never do that, but sometimes when I meditate, I actually do meditations. Um, and this isn't again, this isn't about a doing. This isn't about doing. This is about seeing a different way of looking. So another thing, when I grew up, my mom was a very busy manager of a family restaurant called the Foot of the Mountain Restaurant. You can look it up online; it's still on there. Foot of the Mountain Restaurant. I actually lived behind the restaurant in an apartment. But when my mom brought me home, we lived above the restaurant for the first 10 years of my life. And then whenever I was 5, my brother was born, and then my dad wasn't around and my brother's dad wasn't around. My mom worked a lot, and so did my dad. My dad worked a lot as well. They both worked pretty consistently, a lot of overtime, a lot of hours. And that happened pretty consistently throughout my life. And the reason I'm telling you this story is because I want to tell you what I made that experience mean about me and about people and about the world. My parents worked all the time, consistently. I would say they worked probably 70 hours a week, both of them. And my dad lived right up the road, and I saw him some weekends. But what did I make that mean about me? I made it mean that I wasn't important. I made it mean that I didn't matter. I made it mean that money is hard to come by. I made it mean that you got to work hard in the world, really hard. It's so hard, in fact, you have to neglect your kids to make money. You can't spend time with your kids because you have to work. It's really, really hard. You got to work hard. So I made that experience mean a lot of things. I made it mean my brother is the enemy. He came along and took away all my attention, that little son of a gun. He's he's gonna suffer for that, right? So he was my enemy. I made it mean the world was hard. I made it mean that I didn't matter. And that ran my life for a lot of years, that way of seeing and thinking. And And it still can. But I want you to hear that about you, because there's some kind of a decision that we made when we were really young about who I am, who the world is, who my family is, and what is possible, and that can run our lives if we continue to look in that direction. I want to read you something that my girlfriend sent me today, because that's something that I've learned is from the past. What keeps me from my inner resilience is how I see myself, how I see the world, and how I see other people. And if I see myself, other people, in the world as limited, I see myself, the world, and other people as bad. I see myself, the world, and other people as wrong, evil. That keeps me from my own inner resilience, seeing the world that way. It's okay to see the world that way. Please, this isn't a judgment. This is not a judgment, but it keeps me from being able to connect and really, really serve people. I don't know if you can see that in your own life, if you've experienced this in your own life in some way, but the times when I've been most effective and most joyous and most free, or what do I want to say, most inspired, is the times whenever I was in love with myself and other people, that I was really in love with things. That's when I felt most inspired, when I see opportunity and joy, and I see others as the same. I don't know if you've experienced this or not, but that has kept me from my inner resilience. So I want to read this. Let's see, March 29th. It's time I started being nicer to myself. The voices in my head tell me I'm not good enough. Let's see, wait. The voices in my head that tell me I'm not good enough do not speak the truth. They merely reflect the damaged self esteem that results from living with this thinking, these decisions that we made from our past experience. When I recognize this fact, I can tell them to be quiet. I will no longer listen. We can create a more gentle, more loving thought. We can we can tap into a gentler and more loving thought. This reminds me, when I'm lovable and I can learn to love myself, when I open my mind enough to hear that message, I can begin to hear all the other wonderful sounds of life, and the abusive thoughts vanish. And I just listened to a phenomenal. I'm going to share it actually with anybody who wants it. I've shared it with some of the people here, but I want to share it with you too. It's a podcast by, how many people have listened to the podcast by Steve Hardison, podcast episode 111, The Ultimate Coach? Has anybody listened to that? I sent it to a few people. Is really, really good. Really good. If you would like it and I haven't sent it to you yet, please send me a message and I'll make sure that you get it. It's really phenomenal. But one of the things that he talks about in that podcast is something else that I've seen that's held me back from my inner resilience, is um, seeing the world in a way. It's like the world's perfect, and then we think like everything's great, and then we think, and then things shift and change. And so what I'd like to do now is, let's take just a few minutes, if you're open to it, take a few minutes and do a short 3-minute meditation. Is anybody feeling contempt prior to investigation? Okay, I'm gonna invite you. I'm not gonna challenge you. I'm gonna invite you, if you are having that, just to set that to the side for the moment, and we're gonna do a short 3-minute meditation. And to start the meditation, I'd love for you to, if your back's okay to do this, just sit away from the back of your chair and sit as straight as you can, and put your hands palm up in your lap. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a double inhalation through the nose, and we're going to hold our breath like this. Hold. And then when we release, we're going to do a double exhalation through the mouth. We're going to do that 3 times, and then we're going to go into the meditation. And we're going to start 3 minutes total with the double breathing. I'm going to set a 3-minute timer. No, not 3 hours, 3 minutes. I was about to do 3 hours. We would have been here. You would have been like, what's happening? Hey, has it been 3 minutes? Everybody's checking. Okay. I'm going to start it, and then double inhalation through the nose. Ready, go. Hold.
9:20 a.m.
Oh, whoops. Hold on. Hold on. I messed up. Okay, go. Okay, that was 3 minutes. All right, here we go. Double inhalation through the nose. Hold. Double exhalation through the mouth with a double inhalation through the nose. Double exhalation through the mouth. Last time. Double inhalation through the nose. Hold. Double exhalation through the mouth. Feel your shoulders melt like butter. Feel your jaw drop and breathe in and out through the nose. Focus your attention on the breath. Going in and out. Welcome back. It's fun. I see more smiles out there now. That's an easy way to tap into a little extra piece once in a while. So there's something else that I'd love to share about my past experience and current experience as well, actually, is around my back in the day whenever I was drinking a lot. One of the things that happened to me very regularly was people would disappear and they wouldn't want to hang, they wouldn't want to spend any time with me. They'd be like, we got to get away from this guy. He's just nuts, right? He is self-defeating and self-harming. And most of the people in my life at some point just basically said, sorry, we can't help you. You know, people would tell me all these wonderful things about me and how much potential I had and how great I was and what they could see in me. But my thinking was over, it didn't matter what other people said, because my thinking was, I'm no good. I'm not good enough. People don't want to hear what I have to say. So it didn't matter what other people said because this overrides the outside. Whatever I'm thinking in here overrides the outside. And that's true for human experience. From my experience, that always is true. It doesn't matter. People could tell me how wonderful, how beautiful. Did you ever tell somebody like, oh wow, you look nice? And they say, this old piece of crap, I just pulled this out of the dirty laundry. You've probably done this. I've done it, right? Like swatting away acknowledgments from people that are trying to share something with you that they see. It's like, not me. Are you looking at somebody else? Who are you looking at? You're not looking at me, right? You're not talking about me. You can't be, because that's not who I am. But I noticed that people ran away from me a lot. And there was a time in my life when I was pretty much, I felt like I was all alone. Literally and figuratively, I was all alone. And I had blamed every single person in my life for where I was. I blame my mom for working all the time. I blame my dad for not being around, them for getting a divorce. I blame my brother for being born. I blame the government. I mean, how could you not blame the government? It's all their fault. It's all the government's fault. Politics, the politicians, they did it. They did this to me. The school system, they did it. They did it. It was their fault. School system. Society, oh my goodness, society is so screwed up. It's their fault. They did this to me. They made me this way. These people, all these people made me this way. And that's the way I thought a lot, you know. They've been feeding us all these lies. It's all their fault. So now I want to tell you a joke. It's this guy, he's 75, and he goes to the doctor and he says, hey, doc, my wife can't hear worth nothing. I want to figure out what her level of hearing is. Can you help me? And the doctor says, well, have you ever tried the distance test? And he says, no, what's that? And he said, well, you go home and you measure, where does she like to spend most of her time? And he said, well, she loves to cook. She's always cooking. She loves it. It's her favorite thing. He said, well, from the kitchen, measure out 5 feet, 10 feet, 20 feet, and 40 feet. And he said, well, you start at 40 feet, ask her a question. If she doesn't hear you, go to 20 feet, ask her the question. If she doesn't hear you, go to 10 feet, and so on. And the guy says, okay, got it. I can do that. He said, well, go home and find out where she answers you from, and then come back and I'll tell you what her level of hearing is. So he goes, measures out from the kitchen 5 feet, 10 feet, 20 feet, 40 feet. Starts at 40 feet. Honey, what's for dinner? No answer. So he goes 20 feet. Honey, what's for dinner? No answer. So he goes to 10 feet. Honey, what's for dinner? No answer. So he goes to 5 feet. Honey, what's for dinner? She turns around and says, I told you 3 times, chicken. And that's kind of what my experience in life has been like, because I'm saying people just don't get it. People just don't get it. And I blamed all those people in my life, and I had an experience one day. I had a thought. I had just one single thought. And the thought was something like, I don't know exactly, but the thought was something like, what if it's not all these people's fault that I've been blaming? What if it's not all that? What if it's really not that? What if it's something else? And then I had another thought. I thought, what if the truth is it's not their fault? That would mean I can actually do something about this. I can actually, there's something that I can actually, there's a way that I can show up that will create something different. And that was a miracle. That was one of the biggest miracles in my life. Because I'm guessing other people have experienced this in some way. If you have, raise your hand. Where you realized there was something you could do about it, where you realized you had the power to do something about it. That's in, and I want you to hear this. That's in every single area and relationship in your life. That's in every single situation in your life. There's something you can do about it. There's something you, and maybe it's not doing anything. Sometimes it's just the way of seeing it that changes everything. Because most of the experiences in my life that I felt really empowered and joyous and inspired, I didn't do shit. I didn't do anything. I didn't actually do anything. It was just a switch in the way that I saw it. It was a shift in the realization of like, I can actually do something about this. And I've been telling myself my whole life I couldn't do anything about it. I'm telling myself my whole life I'm stuck. Telling myself my whole life I have I'm a victim to all these things, right? And then when we see like there is a way that I can show up to this that's gonna create something different. There is a way I can see this that's gonna allow me to access my ability to influence it in a way that's going to lead it to more connection, more peace, more joy. So I want you to hear that about something in your life that you're struggling with. I don't have the answers, but when that thought comes, boom, and you see like, oh wait, there is something I could do about this, and maybe there's nothing that you do. That's the other thing is, what did I do? I just realized that I could do something about it, so I started showing up differently. Because what was the problem? It was simply the thoughts that I had about it. That was it. It was just the thoughts of it's other people's fault. And it wasn't, I didn't, that was a miracle that lasted a little while. And then I got married and I was back to blaming again. It's all her fault. She's the one who did this. She's the one who screwed it all up. She needs to change. If you don't change, nothing's going to change. That's what was my story was in my marriage. Guess how fun that was? It was terrible. It was horrible because I was blaming her for all the things that I had the power to do something about. It was really miserable. Um, and that's okay. It's all good. It's part of the experience. When she left me, I realized how very blind I was to what I could have done about it. And that was a big gift. And this isn't a prescription, ladies. I'm not saying go out and leave your husbands. I'm not saying this isn't like, hey, if I leave, Buddy's gonna figure it out. No, please don't hear it that way. Please don't. Okay. This isn't like, yeah, if I did that, then he would know, then he would get it, because it's like we're creating it through our thinking. And that's okay. That's a good thing. That's the good news and the bad news. That's the good news and the bad news. It means you can do something about it. And it also means you're the one doing it now. Sorry, not sorry. It's you and it's you. So it's great. It's like, wait, it's me? No, it's not me. It's them. It's got to be them because they're doing all these things. Okay. I'm not going to go too far into that because one of the other things that I've experienced is I can judge the heck out of myself and beat myself up if my life isn't the way I think it should be. And then I start thinking, what's my fault? That can keep me stuck from my inner resilience too. way to go, dummy. You screwed it up again. What the heck's wrong with you? Should have got it right. If only you would have did this, you could have done better. And that's the same thing in a different way. It's still keeping us stuck from what's really going to create it differently. Another experience I had was whenever my wife got pregnant. I was 39, and I had decided we didn't want to have any more kids. See how I did that? I decided we didn't want to have any more kids. That's how I thought of my marriage. Like, I make the decisions for everybody here. This is the way it works. And you see why we were miserable. I made all the decisions. And that's okay. But so 39, she got pregnant, and we had actually decided a little bit together. She said she didn't either. And I was like, I was so scared when she told me she was pregnant. I was like, what are we going to do? I had always said if she got pregnant again, I was going to move to Mexico. That's what I said. We live in Pennsylvania. That's a long ways away from Pennsylvania. Like, if you get pregnant again, I'm moving to Mexico. I'm out of here. I don't want to deal with that crap. Right. That was my thinking. And there was another miracle that happened. This was another huge miracle in my life. I thought to myself, like, man, what the heck is happening here? She's pregnant. I'm 39. What does this mean? And then I had this thought. It was really powerful. And I called her and I said, this is going to be great. And she goes, what the heck is wrong with you? Are you okay? That's when you know you're onto something. If you call somebody and they say, what's wrong with you? And you've been having challenge for a long time. And they were like, are you okay? Are you on drugs? Are you on drugs again, Robert? What's going on with you? But you know that you're on the right track if you've been having challenge in a relationship and you call somebody and they say, what's wrong with you? That's a good sign. That means they're like, are you, this can't be real, right? And I said, this is going to be great. And she said, what? Why are you saying that? And I said, because I realized something. I said, this wasn't my idea. This wasn't my idea. It's going to be great. Because most of the ideas of my life have been pretty crappy up till that point. And I realized this wasn't something I contrived. This wasn't something I made up and I was trying to do this for some kind of outcome. It was just something that happened. It was something that just happened. And I realized this is going to be great because I didn't think of it. I didn't contrive it. I didn't come up with this scheme to try to get something to happen in life. It just happened. And that was a miracle in my life. It was a miracle. Her pregnancy was really one of the most joyous times of my life. And right now, because I'm looking at all your beautiful faces on here. Um, but that was another miracle in my life. And another one that I'll share with you, I like to share these regularly because they were such big shifts in my life. The other thing I used to think was life is hard. It's really hard. I got to teach my kids how to deal with suffering and hardship. And I need my kids need to suffer so they can make it in the world. And I remember being with a lady, such a sweet lady. And I said something about, I forget what we were talking about, but I said, kids need to struggle a little bit. That's all right for them to hurt. They need to hurt, kind of like that. And she said, life's hard enough. You don't have to make it harder on them. God, was that ever a realization? So true. So true. And I realized my whole life. My whole life, I had been thinking something that wasn't true. And that's what a miracle is seeing where we've been living our lives in a way that just isn't, it's just not true. And that's all around us. The opportunity to see that is all around us in every moment. And that's what this is an invitation to, is to really see where that is happening in your own life. Because it's right there and it only takes one shift, and there's nothing we have to do for it to shift. Doesn't matter how long. Doesn't matter how long you've been going through it. Whatever it is, it can shift with one thought, one experience, one moment. It doesn't have to be hard. That's another thing. We think it's like, we pick up these ideas. They're kind of like stones, right? We pick up an idea. I'm not good enough. Life is hard. My kids need to struggle to make it in the world. I need to be tough so people don't F with me, right? I need to do this. I need to be that. I should do this. I should do that. And we pick these rocks up, and we got this huge bag of rocks of whatever it is that we're carrying in our basket, right? All these rocks. And then we're carrying them around for a big portion of our lives. And then we say, okay, now how do I get rid of these rocks? And then we say, well, I need to study these rocks and understand where they came from, where I picked them up, what they look like. What's this rock made of? This rock is made of this, that, and the other thing. Do you need to really understand those rocks to put the basket down? Do you need to know where the rocks came from and what they're made of to put the rocks down? Can you just drop the basket and just move on? Can you just drop the basket? Or maybe that's a little too much. Like, we're gonna drop the whole basket? No, I've been carrying this basket my whole life. I don't want to drop the whole basket. Then who am I? Who am I without the basket? Then what? Then I'm like, oh no, I don't have my basket, right? So okay, we'll pick one out and throw it. Don't worry, you're gonna pick it up in your sleep and you're gonna go, where the heck did that rock come from again? I thought I put that sucker down, right? It's gonna come back whether you can put it down. It's okay to put it down because I don't know. It's probably gonna come back. It has for me because I go, okay, I put that down. I'm good now. Look at me. I'm completely loving and forgiving everybody and myself. And then it's like, look at that idiot. What the heck is he doing? Right? Like, it just comes back. It's like, whoa, I've been practicing that a long time. It's going to take a little while to put these rocks down in the basket. Um, but do you need to understand the rock to let it go? No. And is the rock gonna be put down forever? Probably, I don't know. In my experience, it hasn't been because I think, oh, well, finally put that rock down. Now I'm perfect. Thank goodness. Oh, I feel light and free. Now I can move. And then all of a sudden I'm like, where the hell that rock is back here again? Oh man, this is a bunch of crap. I thought I got rid of that rock. And then I'm stuck again, right? Thinking about how I shouldn't have that rock in my hand. I shouldn't be feeling this way because I put that down last year. I stopped blaming people whenever I was 20. Now, why am I blaming my wife again? Well, then I stopped blaming my wife. Now, why am I blaming my kids now? I stopped blaming my kids. So why am I blaming the government now? It's like, it's very sneaky how it gets in there, and it likes to get in there and try to direct us away, whatever that little sneaky thing is. But it's very, what's the word for it? Subtle. It's very subtle. Comes in very subtly and sneaks its way in. One day I love everybody and everything, and I feel ascended. And then the next day I'm like, I don't want to get out of bed. I can't stand this crap. I have to do this again. Like, that's life, you know what I mean? Like, that's what we're going through. And to expect that it's not going to be that way, I think sometimes has kept me from my resilience. Because when I feel like that, has anybody else experienced this? When I feel like that, I feel like I'm getting it wrong. It's like, I'm getting it wrong. I feel like crap today. I'm in this dang body that's going to be gone someday, and I feel like that's all I am is just a body. Like, oh, and it keeps getting older and uglier. And I went to the doctor, and they said, I got bad news. He said, there's nothing we can do about your face, and it's only going to get worse. Oh, no. Oh, shoot. Um, so those are some things that I've experienced over the years that have been really amazing, miraculous shifts for me that have shifted my way of showing up in the world momentarily, momentarily. And what this exploration is about for you is take those stories and apply them to a part of your life. Where does that apply for you? Where can you apply that thinking to something that you're struggling with? Does that thinking fit? Is that feasible for you? Um, does it, how does it fit? Are you open to explore and look in that direction? Um, is it exciting to look in that direction? Maybe not, maybe not. Sometimes it's not. And this is the other thing is when those things have come for me, it hasn't been when I'm like digging. It's always been like out of the blue. Like I'm not I'm not trying to make it happen. It just comes out of the blue. It's not like I'm working really hard to get it. I gotta get an insight. Oh, gotta get an insight. Here we go. What's my insight gonna be now? Oh, gotta get it because my life sucks really bad. I gotta make it good. Okay, how do I do it? Ooh, ooh, ooh. It's always when I'm just kind of like going throughout the day, like, my kids need to struggle a little bit. And then somebody says something like, no, life's pretty tough. How about you be nice to them? I'm like, oh shit. Whoa, watch out. Um, but yeah, that's the other thing is it has come whenever I've least expected it. Almost every time. I have to say every time it's come that way. And this is also about making a choice because I can choose to be loving. I can actually choose to be loving. And so can you. We can actually, I believe that we all have the choice to do that. Like I can say, you know what? I'm going to be loving today. What would that look like if you just chose, if we all today here chose together to be loving, kind, and gentle with everybody or just with each other? What would it look like? Okay, I'm going to do something now. I'm going to go to, I want to find the Ultimate Coach podcast and I want us to listen to a little bit of this podcast. Will you grant me a little bit of patience while I find this, please? I'd appreciate it. I'm sure you will. Let's see. I think I have it. There's a lot of great stuff in this. Let's see. Mike, I sent that to you yesterday, didn't I?
Yes, sir.
Did you ever get on your phone and then you have like 13 notifications and then you get distracted right away and you can't figure out what you're doing? That's what I'm creating right now.
Yep.
All right. Here we go. Okay, I'm emailing it to myself on my phone onto the computer.
Robert.
Thank you for being. Yes.
So I go back to old messages where I sent it to someone and then click on it that way. It's easier. Unless you delete
Thank
those
you.
messages.
No, I don't delete. I don't delete any of my messages. Okay. Thank you for being patient with me. I appreciate y'all. Does anybody have any questions or comments around what we've shared, what has been shared so far?
I mean, I think you're right that a lot of this stuff does come out of left field when you're not expecting it, but you've got to kind of prime your mind to accepting those conversations, listening as you're experiencing it, kind of thing. Because you could want to think those things, but if you're not listening to the other person, you're not going to take it to heart. So you got to kind of prime your.
If you are preoccupied with your own thoughts, you will not hear the
Mhm.
outside.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you could be hearing revelations all day long, but in your head, you're preoccupied.
Robert, you had me reflecting on some things I was doing unconsciously, even with my business. I wanted to get a certain product from a company at wholesale, and I got turned down because I didn't have a sales tax license. And I thought, oh, great, another thing I have to do. So I'm like looking on how do you get a sales tax license? And I'm going, this is so confusing. There's no number you can call. And I'm like, it's not even worth it. This is ridiculous. Having a business is too hard. So all these stories that I started to believe. And then because I had that thought, I started seeing all the other things that seemed hard about owning a business. And I'm like, gosh, being a business owner is so hard. And I kept seeing all these hard things pop up. And I didn't realize like what I started creating in that moment, it kind of snowballs, right? You start to see all the hard things. And then you start looking like, do I want to keep doing this? I mean, mind you, I've been in business since 2016 with Holistic Pet Mentor. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, it's too hard because I didn't have a sales tax license, you know. So it was just interesting because I didn't even realize that. And listening to you today, I'm like, wow, that's a block that I picked up real fast. It's like, okay, I'll put that down. I don't need it. I can keep going. It's fine. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's so huge, and hearing that about everything in our lives, our business, our family, our like with my daughter, I have sometimes I'm like, oh my goodness, with my youngest, I'm like, why can't she just calm down a little bit? And then with my oldest, I'm like, why can't she just come out here and talk to me more? It's so funny. It's like what in the world? Like I want two different things is it's so funny instead of just saying, hey, how can I create this in a more meaningful way? Like with the business. How can I create this in a more meaningful way? We've been and I don't want to this isn't blaming people in the past, but we have been directed to focus on the problems in life. We've been directed to focus on the problems from people around us. When we were kids, our parents, when did they talk to you the most? When you're doing something they don't like, right? It's like, hey, stop that, don't do that, get away from there, don't do this, don't do that, hey. And then when you're doing, when you're going through life all calm and everything, then parents are like, okay, they're good. Now I can go over here and do whatever I need to do, and they're fine, right? The only time the attention happened and the connection happened was during those times of don't write on the wall. What the heck's wrong with you, kid? Oh, what's wrong with me? Let me figure that out. Well, I'm not good enough. Let's see what else. What's wrong with me? Well, the doctor said my face is stuck the way it is, and it's only going to get worse. That. What else? But yeah, I love that. So thank you for sharing that. We have agency to do something about this stuff. Damien, I saw your thing was off. Were you gonna or your thing was on? Were you gonna share something?
My thing
You
was
don't
on, maybe my thinking was on. I'm listening, I don't know anybody here, I just know Robert. And my thing, with the addiction world, I've been in it since '98. And, right now I'm like 10 miles deep into Dr. Joe Dispenza. My thing is Dispenza and Abraham Hicks. So the joke is whatever shows up, you ordered it. Somebody's annoying you, well, you ordered it because you want more patients. That's the joke. The joke is for you to figure it out. I'm talking about me. So yeah, life is like whatever I order. And I don't know how to order, but I'm learning and I keep learning how to order. And it's not something that, for me, nothing ever shows up out of the blue. Because when I figure it out, oh yeah, I ordered that. Why does this keep happening? Well, you keep ordering it. That's what I, I'm hearing. So yeah, I just do a lot of deep digging, where we have 90,000 thoughts a day or 70,000 thoughts a day, whatever the story is. This is the joke that I found out through Dispenza. 85 to 90% of those thoughts are the same ones from yesterday. That's why it's a challenge to change, unless you understand that, and then challenges, the challenge is an excellent, like an obstacle course. You look forward to it. So, life is what you want to look for, so yeah, we can keep playing the same song. Or before, I mean, the addiction world, I didn't have a choice, but that was a lie. I always did, but I didn't know how to make a better one. So, for me, nothing comes out of the blue. If it did, I didn't pay attention how I ordered it. So that's how I look at things. Everybody says, this is who I am. That's not true. That's who you're being. So I used to be a very reactive maniac. My reaction went way down. My responding went way up. So I'm listening to the stories you're talking about. I just heard about this. Like you sent me a message, 10 minutes before the meeting. I've been up for already 3 hours. I'm in California. So I've been up for 4 hours now. So anyway, that's my little thought.
Thanks, David. Glad that you said yes to being here. It's always a joy to see you, and everybody else. I'm so glad that everybody said yes to this. And I wanted to tell you, Damien, I don't know if you know this, but I don't have patients. Do you know why? Because I'm not a doctor. That's why.
You can always sign up.
Doctor. Maybe I could say I'm gonna switch that around to be a little more
No, don't do that. No, stay in the mud a little longer. Don't do that.
Do you know why I have infinite patience? Because
I'm listening.
Because I'm a soul doctor. That's why. How's that? Is that good?
All right, it's all good. It's all good.
Hey, can anybody quickly and simply help me? Oh, there it is. Share. Okay, there it is. I want to share with you my screen. And I want to share this with everybody. And share sound. Okay, cool. And optimize for video sharing. I want to make sure. Please tell me, can you see my screen?
Yep.
Ready? Okay, cool. So I want to play this. A few minutes of this.
Something fun, and that is.
Can you hear that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. I don't think I remember doing this anytime, so this will be my first time in doing this.
Episode. Thank you. Steve needs no introduction for those of you who have.
That's not true. I'm going to introduce Steve. For those of you who don't know Steve Hardison, Steve Hardison is a guy they call the ultimate coach. And there's a book written, it's about you. The stories in it about his life and his coaching. And he's he's a really amazing guy. He's changed my life. I've had numerous conversations with him, and he has shifted my life. He's retired now, but when he did coach, he charged $200,000 for a year of coaching, which seems amazing. And he's just a great person, and he talks about love in action in this audio. And I'd love for you to listen to it just as an exploration and just really open your heart to listen to this. So that's a quick introduction of Steve Hardison.
Read the Ultimate Coach book and have been part of the Being community for more than 5 minutes. And I want to start out with something fun, and that is, Steve, to ask you, why did you say yes to episode 111?
Well, quite a while ago, I don't remember if it was 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, Ross was doing podcasting and he called me up and he said, hey, I'd like to do an interview. I know you're not doing a lot of interviews, but would you do an interview? And he says, I'd like you to do number 11. 11th one. I know 11's your favorite number. And I said to him, how about 111? And so several years ago, I told Ross I would do a podcast. And then you communicated with me and said, hey, we do a podcast? And I said, yes. And I can't remember if we made up doing the 111 or I said, let's wait to 111. I can't remember, but I ended up doing, I think this is 111.
Yes. You said because of 1 being a favorite number,
Yes.
that you thought episode 111 would be good. So we've come full circle on your original
Yes.
commitment. I just think that's so fun. And Steve, one of the topics that I know is just not just near and dear to your heart, but how you live is this coming from a place of love. And in fact, you've said love is the highest state of being. And I know that part of our conversation, maybe a lot of it today, is probably going to revolve around this really important topic. I would love for you to start out by talking about how you define love and what does it look like in action?
Wow. That's a big question. I don't know that I ever define it. I experience it, and how I experience it is something inside of me feels alive, lightened, and lovely about who I'm being or who I'm with. And then I say it goes from there into an action. It's not this passive thing. It's an experience that then, at least in my case, puts me into action. And whatever particular action it is out of me being loving. And I don't really think about what the action is. It just comes out. So I don't have a definition for love. I study it. When I was walking around this morning, I was just thinking in my own mind in the kitchen, not about this conversation, just about the ideas I was having. And I thought, wow, it's interesting, Steve. If it were okay with other people, you'd hug anyone that you saw. And it's real.
So for you, the physical expression of being able to hug someone is a way of conveying love to them.
Mm-hmm. I think that's one way. I think another way is to listen, just to listen to someone.
And your way of listening is profound. When I think about that chapter in the book on listening, it's one of my favorites in the whole book. And so talk a little bit about who you're being when you are being a loving listener.
When I'm being a loving listener, what I call heart-centered listening, is I'm not somewhere else. I'm not thinking of some future or what happened in the morning. I'm actually right there. And when I'm looking at someone speaking to me, I actually metaphorically see words coming out of their mouth. And I'm paying attention to the words and also what's creating the words. So in that committed space, not a to-do, a state of being, is I hear things that are really simple, but I'm there so I can hear them. So most of the time, the next question from me isn't one that was in me. It's one that was generated by listening to what the person said. I can remember being in a coaching session with the Yanma. it was 5 hours. Coaching sessions about 2 hours. And in that 5 hours, I may have said 100 words, and it would just be, tell me more what you mean. What was that like for you? Not set questions, just being with someone. I find that listening to someone, it could be a total stranger, just to be listened to is an experience that most people don't get in a day. Moving by quickly, people say, how are you? And you pass the hall and say, fine. And you can just miss each other. So I've been fortunate to, for some reason, to create a way that I'm with people in a quiet space and I get to practice listening. So when I'm in my office, and my office really is wherever I go, but when I'm in my physical office, it's a sacred place to listen. And it's real for me. I tell people that my office is the most sacred place on the planet for me. You can feel it. It's safe, it's quiet. And I can remember I have a client, I will keep him nameless and her nameless, but I worked with him for 2 years. I worked with him 12 full years. But about the second year, he said, hey, my wife would like to come and meet you. Now, I knew he had a wife and I'd seen her, but I said, okay. So she comes and I'm sitting with her in my office and I'm just asking her questions about her life. Like, what made you want to come and see me? What's your day look like? Not tell me what you did today. What's a day in your life look like? And I just listened to her. And as I'm listening to her, just tears come down her face. And I said, do you want to tell me what that's about? And she said, I have never been listened to like this in my whole life. So I find that listening is a great way.
It's a beautiful way to show love, I think, being a good listener. And one other thing that always comes up with you, Steve, is self-love, self-forgiveness. And what I want to ask you now is, how can someone cultivate love within themselves, especially when facing deep personal struggles or challenges?
I think it's difficult for all of us to do that. If we knew what others were going through, we would be less judgmental. And as we reduce being judgmental, what takes its place is love. So if I could realize that what I'm experiencing, because every person today will have challenges and experiences that no one else will know. And the person having those challenges and experiences, it's so personal and it's so real that though everything could look good, inside it's really challenging just to do what they do. And many people put on that smiley face and they're in pain from the judgment they have on themselves and other people. So given that we're all in that same place, because there is no one not in that space, there's no one I ever work with that isn't challenged by wishing they had something different than they have about themselves or wish a problem were gone. There's no one that goes through a day that doesn't have that, even on the very best day. So if I wanted to, how do I demonstrate or create love for myself when there's these problems? I look for something that's good in others or in myself. And I find it, even in the smallest way. Again, I'll leave these people nameless, and if some of them listen, they'll know it's them. I had someone that called me up that you know very well. And he said, my wife would like to speak to you. She has a challenge. And I said, well, there's just one problem. You should have her talk to me. I mean, she doesn't need a middleman. I don't need. So if your wife wants to talk to me, give her my phone number. So she calls me up. And this illustrates what you're talking about, a small one, because there's thousands of these. I promise you that today, before too long goes, too much time passes, I'll be like sad about something that I wish I'd have done better, or I'll think something in my mind where it's like, why would I think that? And I do it. So I get a call from her, and she said, my husband said I could call you and then talk to you. I've got a challenge. I said, what is it? And she says, I'm really, really quite resentful, angry, and upset because we had a wedding and I don't feel like I was supported by members of my community and my church. And I said, tell me about it. So she starts telling me about it. I said, okay, I have a doctor's appointment. What I want you to do, it'll be 1 hour and you're going to have to call me back because you're wanting to talk with me. So I'm going to give you an assignment and then you call me back. So I said, I want you to list all the people that came to your wedding and supported you. Then I want you to list the people that didn't come and they supported you. And then I want you to list the people that let you know they weren't come and they supported you by telling you that. And bring me those 3 lists. So an hour later, she calls and I said, you see that list of everything, those people that all did stuff? I said, I want you to call each of them and thank them. And then the ones that didn't show up, call them and thank them. I said, you're looking in the wrong spot. You're looking for where you didn't get support. Look for where you got it. It really altered her world. We didn't get into a very long, far conversation. She says, oh my gosh. And I think that is the way that we create our personal problems, is we look at what we don't see that's very good and we miss all the greatness that there is. And in every person, there is this greatness, this magnificent, until we take it away with our own thinking, by our own self-judgment. And my idea is, not my idea, I own it, my thought is, if I want to increase the amount of love, this thing that I can't define, reduce the amount of judgment. Just take 1 judgment down and you get a notch at love. Take 3, it goes there. My experience is any human being I'm ever with, if they get in a place of forgiving themselves of the judgments they have, and they're in this space of just being present, all that is sitting there is love and presence. No exceptions. The worst human in the world. So I don't know the definition of love. I know the experience of love. I know that what gets in the way of love is judgment, resentment, gossiping. You want to increase love? I could make up a list because they're just like, because it's just, instead of gossiping about someone, when you hear something good, share it with people. I call that God-sipping. And you'll seldom hear me say anything about a person, even if it's true. I'm not going to move that long. That's not loving. It's not kind. It creates the mess. But if someone sends me something and I'm inspired by it, I send it 20, 30 people. Something like that every day. I God-sip. It increases this. I'm looking for the greatness in someone. I don't even have to like them. And something shifts by looking for the good in them. I don't know if that answers your question, but at least in this particular moment, that's the answer. If you asked me that same question 10 minutes ago or tomorrow, I would have a different answer.
I love that answer, Steve, because to me, it goes to Ipek's question about loving yourself and what gets in the way of that. And what you were just describing with that example of the person being disappointed by those who she perceived as not supporting her, we overlook all those who do. And with ourselves, I think we can beat ourselves up for something we did or didn't do and overlook all the ways that we can bring our greatness into the world. So I think it's a parallel with self-love and love of others.
So thanks for understanding. I didn't really do a whole lot of, I didn't know how long I was going to share that, but I think that's a great place to stop for now. And if anybody wants the rest of that, please just send, well, you can go to the Ultimate Coach podcast and look up episode 111 or send me a message and I'll share it with you. Let's see here. Stop share. There we go. I've listened to that a couple times now, the whole thing, and there's so much great stuff in that. So much great stuff. I'm curious of what did you hear in that or anything that we talked about today? I'd love to open up 15 minutes to a little discussion and some sharing. Does anybody have any questions as well if you have a question. I'd love to. Mike?
Yeah, Robert, thanks for sharing that. And thanks for your vulnerability earlier today. That was amazing. You sent me this yesterday and I had a chance to listen to it. And then I was just going back through some of it this morning and trying to dissect it. And somewhere around the 5.5 minute mark, he says, he's talking about listening. And he says, most of the time, the next question isn't one that was in me. It was generated by what the person said. And it really struck me as I don't do that. I'm thinking about what you're saying. How am I going to respond? How am I going to sound smart? How am I going to show you that I'm paying attention to what you're saying? How are you going to know that, like when you and I do coaching, oh man, I got to show Robert that I've been doing my homework, so to speak. I've been doing, I'm into these books. I'm reading the stuff that you shared with me. And I'm thinking this stuff, but he broke it down so smart. I've never heard anybody else say it that way before, of truly listening. And I'm going to say metaphorically, seeing the words that come out of somebody's mouth. That really was strong with me, because if I'm that much into what the other person is saying, and I totally tune out anything else, he says that's most of the time the next question isn't one that is in me. It was generated by what the person said. Man, I want that level of listening, in all my relationships, especially in the ones that are the closest, the most intimate relationships that I have. I want that. So that's something that I really took away from that. So that's what I had. Thanks.
Thanks for sharing. Appreciate it, Mike. Anybody else?
There was a couple things I took away from that, about the part when he said he was listening to what the woman wanted to talk about, and she stopped and was crying, and he asked what was that about and if she didn't mind sharing, and she said about having never felt that heard before or listened to in that way. With a lot, it was like, wow, yeah. And I'd like to become a better listener to give that gift to somebody else. And then the other thing was the God sipping. I thought that was a great way to explain, like, instead of looking for the faults in people, look for the good thing and then share that about them. So those were my takeaways.
Yeah, I love that. That's one of the things that I've definitely learned from reading the Ultimate Coach book, and from being connected with people in the being community, which is the people around the book. Who are you being? Who are you being? He said that a couple times. Has been acknowledging people. And this is the other thing that he didn't talk about too much in that, but the language that we use creates our experience. Whether it's language that comes out of our mouth or language that's up here, like what you were sharing earlier, Jamie, about in your business, where you had the language in your mind of, oh my goodness, this is so hard, I might as well give up. It's the language, and then how it spirals as well. When we have, this is the other thing, is it does spiral. It builds on itself, like with the positive, well, I want to say loving thoughts, they also build on themselves. Like, for everybody who showed up here today and the presence that you had during this call, like, I want to acknowledge you for being here, being present, listening, being open to be part of something where we can come together and talk about these ideas together. That's a gift. That's a gift, that we can come together, and that you're open to do that, and that you're open to hear and share. So I want to acknowledge everybody that's here. Or it could choose, that there may be some people on here who are choosing to say, oh, I didn't like it when we did that, or I didn't like this, or it should be like this, or it could be like that, and that's okay too. And I love what this is about is a choice, is taking the choice that we have and seeing the choices that we have and then choosing the one that's going to create more connection, more meaning, more value for the people around us and for ourselves. There's a story later on that we didn't listen to that's coming up for me now. If you're open to me sharing that with you, I will give you the link. But he has a little piece of paper. It's like a sticky note from his wife. And they're a little bit out there. His wife says, Steve, just to let you know, you're making it all up. So since you're making it all up, would you please make up something that's going to bring us closer together instead of further apart? Like, Steve, you're making it all up with your thinking. Would you please, you're a master creator. Would you please choose to create something that brings us closer together instead of creating something with your thinking that's tearing us apart? And then he goes on to talk about as well, which I've experienced this in my life. Whatever we complain about or whatever we see that we don't like, and we choose to look at that thing, guess what we get more of? It's like in my marriage, whenever I was married, I had a long list of all the things that I thought my wife should do differently. That was kind of the things I talked about most. So guess how our marriage was when we were married? Well, it was terrible because all I talked about was all the things that I thought she should do differently. Well, you know what I don't like? I don't like this. And, you fart and you pick your teeth, and you never did that when we were dating, whatever. All the things that now I'm in a relationship, and when we first started our relationship, we started to tell each other our red flags. Like, I'm going to share my red flags. And I said, you know what? Let's not do that. Let's share our green flags with each other instead of talking about our red flags. I said, what are your green flags? What's the great things about you? Tell me that. And I'll tell you what's great about me. And that's how we created our relationship from the beginning, as we talked about our green flags, and we made a list of our green flags. All the things that we appreciated about ourselves that we had to bring to the relationship. And that's what we've continued to build on and build on and build on in our relationship. And it's a daily acknowledgement to each other of whatever we're seeing at the time or what we want to create. And that's what I see more of. So why not? Right? It's like list of 30 acknowledgments. You know what? I love when you wear that dress. You look so great in it. I love your smile. It's beautiful. Oh, your hair looks so nice. And just honestly seeing the greatness in that has created more of it. And it's a choice. So you can step away from here today and choose, like, you know what? I'm going to be loving and acknowledge. And if you haven't been doing that and you start doing it, the people around you are going to go, you all right? What's going on? You okay? What's happening here? So what go ahead, Evan.
I was going to say, I really appreciate Damien's metaphor with the ordering. And I kind of see the similarities between what you're talking about here. Like you either have a good menu to order from or you have a bad menu to order from. And based on the menu that you pick is what you're going to get, kind of thing. That's kind of, I really like that metaphor. That was all.
Thanks, Evan.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
So I'll add to that a little bit if you like. So the deal is, a little of my backstory. Like I said, I've been in the addiction world since '98, and I became a certified drug and alcohol counselor, blah, blah, blah. And I stopped that because what I didn't like is this is who I am. And my thing is that's not true. That's who you're being. So why did I go in and out, in and out, in and out? You know, why do people go in and out, in and out, in and out? I finally found my answer about, I don't know, 4 to 6 months ago with Dispenza. This has to go with the ordering menu, okay? I want to do good, I should do good, I'm going to do good, and I don't. And the reason is, the reason I used to pick the order, what showed up was with 5% conscious, 95% unconscious. And when you order something, technically, you're not ordering it. Say I have like say blood cells. Say I have 5 marbles of anger in me, and you have 70 marbles of anger. If I get a little annoyed, I'll get back on track in 2 hours. You get a little annoyed, you might get back on track 2 weeks later, because the chemical, the thought makes the chemical. The chemical of anger says, I want to do this, I should do this. That's what your mind says. But the chemical of the body says, shut up, keep driving. So we order stuff because the chemical is ordering it. I used to have very strong chemicals of hit first, talk later. Now a very strong chemical, I'll listen and talk. And if I get mad, it takes a lot of work, because that was the key that I didn't understand. The chemicals are running the body. Every thought, and I'll pass this on also. If you want to learn how this works, there's a show called Rewired on Amazon. It's very technical, and a 10-year-old can understand it because there's a lot of animation. Dr. Joe Dispenza, Rewired. So I want to do good, I should do good, I'm going to do good, and I don't, is because the chemicals running my body. So the more I understood that, the more the chemical gets rechemicalized. So that's why this who I am is not true. My thought, that's who I'm being. So I knew how to be. Money's getting low, I need to deal some coke and steal some cars. Today, money gets a little low, money's getting a little low. I don't have to react to it. So it took a long time to get here, but that's the thing with the order. You know, why does this happen? I ordered that. And I would be like, no way. Oh yeah, way. So that's how that works.
Thanks, Damien.
Thank you for that.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
I had a corny joke, but it went away. It was there on the tip of, it was on the tip of my brain around. I forget what it was, but I'm gonna read you another one. How was the candle party? It was lit. Oh yeah, there's one for you. I got a calendar with dad jokes on it for my birthday this year, which was last week. And the invitation that I'd love to, as the closing of this meeting, and I want to tell you, everybody, thank you for being here. It's a pleasure and an honor to have everybody here and to have this space. We're going to do this once a month. If you want to come back again, I'd love to. That you're on the list. I'll send you another invite for the next one. Not sure what the topic will be yet, but we shall see what comes up. And I wanted to share on what you shared, Damien, a little bit of, there is the chemicals, and there is something that's even for me that I've experienced that is beyond that. It's beyond the regular like robotic stuff that comes through in the space. It comes through like it clicks in the space between the thoughts, between the robotic chemical reaction that we have in our that's been made up through whatever that is. There's something beyond that in the space, or beyond the space, or beyond the thinking that comes in when we are open, when I'm open to it, when I'm open to it. It's beyond that whole I did this and then that happened and react and, you know, act and react kind of thing. It's beyond, there's something beyond that that has and moments to not every moment, but there's been moments like in those moments where it's like, oh yeah, I do have the power to change this. That was one of those moments that it came in beyond the action and reaction. And that's what this is an invitation to. I don't have the answers for you. I don't have the answers for anybody. I don't even have the answers for myself. The invitation is to become open to hearing what that is and what is showing up, whether that's in the silence or whether that's in somebody else sharing. That's the invitation, because that is where I found that inner resilience and that inner wisdom is beyond the thinking. So that's the invitation. Love you all. Have a beautiful, beautiful day. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you got a lot from this, and look forward to seeing you again next time if you're open to it. See you.
Thank
Thanks, Robert.
everybody.
Have a great
Thank
day.
you,
Robert.
everybody.
Nice to meet y'all. Take care.
Yes,
See ya.
take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.